4 aircraft arrived, all of them with abilities to combat drones. The French are coming, so the least we expect is the Britons to also be present. Since, as I said, we are not only defending Cypriot area.
And High Commissioner, I just wonder then, what further do you want to see the UK do to ensure that there is safety and security for everyone, as much as there possibly can be? Because as you say, there are drones, there are ballistic missiles, and there's a lot of uncertainty.
Well, it was obvious that the drone attack on the night after the midnight of last Sunday was a success because it hit the target, right? So they need to augment their capabilities and capacities. At least. I'm not going to tell them how to do it. It's not my job.
Here with me in the studio is Tara Kangalu, Global Affairs journalist, author of the book The Heartbeat of Iran. And in the last hour, we were talking about casualties and also the postponement of this Supreme Leader's memorial service because of, presumably because of the security fears. We were about to talk about what Iranian people are thinking about the outcome of all this. What would be the worst case scenarios for the people, ordinary people of Iran?
Of course. And Mark, multiple things, as you know, can be true at the same time. One is that Iranians want to move beyond the regime. They no longer see legitimacy in the Islamic Republic. But at the same time, they're extremely worried as to what's next. And the 3 worst case scenarios, when you talk to ordinary Iranians, is the breakup of Iran. And I know we're hearing conversations and talks of potential involvement of the Kurdish forces in Iraq. And that is something that we need to look at carefully, because that's one of Iranians' biggest fear, the breakup of the country and the country's territory. The second one is the emergence of groups like the MEK. As you know, this is a militant organization that was on the U.S. terror list until 2012-2013, and they have been trying to influence and lobby Washington for many years.
So is it working?
And we need to watch that carefully, and that's of concern to Iranian people. And the last one that perhaps is the most prominent worry is the remainder of the IRGC, whatever that would look like, the crumbles that would be left the day after the war, whether or not they're going to stay, how would that look like, and its impact on ordinary Iranians, because history has shown the people of Iran that after every incident, conflict, protest, the regime would be more brutal and more repressive toward the people.
Right, I mean, and a collapsed regime, with no replacement, and the opposition, as we keep reminding ourselves, there's no real figure to rally around. Do you know what, we're going to pick up on this because we've got to go to the White House, and Caroline Levitt is
yeah, I did, yeah, sweet.
The world's leading state sponsor of terrorism are over. Iran's murderous terrorist leaders are paying for their crimes against America, and they're paying in blood. Since 1979, the terrorist Iranian regime has actively and intentionally facilitated the killings of Americans. They chant death to America and fund other radical terrorists who attack our country and are seeking to destroy Western civilization itself. These terrorists seized our embassy and took 66 Americans hostage in Tehran.
66, 67.
They slaughtered 241 U.S. service members with their truck bombing.
Not you now.
They killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq.
Any
This is
chance?
just a small fraction of their blood-soaked record. Prior leaders have been too weak and ineffective to address this threat. Some, like Barack Hussein Obama, even sent columns of cash that ultimately financed this terrorist crusade against the United States and our
I knew he was waiting for you to go.
while signing stupid and naive deals that put Iran on the path of developing nuclear bombs. After years of endless appeasement and empty statements from
that's not good.
politicians on both
That's not
sides
good.
of the political aisle in this town, President Trump is finally the man of action. President Trump is holding these monsters accountable and permanently extinguishing their nuclear
That's the TV in the background if you can't hear his news, so not my opinion.
At the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, launched last weekend, President Trump laid out clear objectives to the American people on
I'm not
what
going
the
to
US
Google, so
military seeks to accomplish through these major combat operations. Number one, destroy the regime's deadly ballistic missiles and completely raise
where's he
their
going
missile
anymore?
industry to the ground. Number two, annihilate the
I'll just wait
Iranian
then, you know what I mean?
Navy. And so far, we have destroyed more than 20 Iranian ships, including their top submarine last night, using a torpedo for the first time since World War II. There is not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf,
I'll
Strait
fucking
of
go on
Hormuz,
then.
or the Gulf of Oman. Number three, Operation Epic Fury
Fuck
will
me.
ensure the regime's terrorist proxies in the region can no longer destabilize the region or the free world and attack our armed forces. And thus far, Iran's proxies are hardly putting up a fight. Number four, this mission will guarantee that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. It's safe to say that thus far, Operation Epic Fury has been a resounding success. American forces have struck more than 2,000 targets, destroying hundreds and hundreds of ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. As the Department of War said this morning, we expect to have complete and total dominance over Iranian airspace in the coming hours, clearing the skies for our brave warriors to continue achieving these noble and long sought-after objectives. There's been a lot of misreporting and intellectual dishonesty from the American media on why President Trump decided to launch this operation. So let me remind you,
7,
Operation
6,
Midnight Hammer, which took place last June,
4,
obliterated
3,
Iran's three
2,
major nuclear sites.
1.
Yet the terrorist Iranian regime has remained fully committed to rebuilding its
I ain't
nuclear
going yet.
program. How do we know this? Because Iran has pursued this path of war and violence despite President Trump dispatching two of his top and most trusted negotiators to engage in exhaustive and good faith negotiation to try and a deal. And the world knows this president's preference is always peace and diplomacy first. Look no
There we
further
go.
than the 8 additional global conflicts he has ended in the past year as proof. Unfortunately, the terrorist Iranian regime refused to negotiate in good faith. They chose this path of violence and destruction, and they are reaping the consequences of their horrible decision. The regime did what they always have done. They lied, they delayed, they tried to string the United States of America along. They wanted to buy themselves time to continue building ballistic missiles and other deadly weaponry that could harm our U.S.
Interesting.
personnel and troops in the region, and to continue
Gotta get some
aggressively
fucking
pursuing
troops.
their unacceptable nuclear ambitions. U.S. negotiators offered to lift crippling sanctions on Iran and even provide nuclear fuel to Iran at no cost to support a civil nuclear power program. They additionally had the opportunity to accept U.S. support as an investor in potential projects to develop peaceful nuclear energy together under a mutually agreed upon framework. Yet in response, Iran would have to forfeit their enrichment capacity once and for all. But
Shit.
Iran rejected. They accepted none of these generous and unprecedented offers by the United States. Simply put, they refused to say yes to peace.
Fucking
And
Texas.
their refusal made clear that their number one priority was building a nuclear weapon with which to threaten the United States of America.
GG, dickhead.
Again, the country they have been chanting death to for nearly 5 decades.
Please.
Let me state this again clearly. Iran rejected the
Come
path
on.
to peace because the terrorists in charge of this regime wanted to build nuclear weapons to use against Americans and our allies. President Trump made the determination a courageous determination.
So I'm putting your time with, dickhead.
The path the United States was on with Iran had only one outcome: massive death and destruction at the hands of a nuclear-armed terroristic regime. That path of death and destruction and threats against the American people have ended with Operation Epic Fury. Operation Epic Fury has forged a new path that will better ensure the security of the United States and our people. The terrorists made a bet that President Trump would be like many of his predecessors, that he would just talk and he would refuse to enforce his clear red lines. And that has proven to be a catastrophic error in judgment. When President Trump makes a threat, and I have reiterated that threat many times from this podium to all of you over the past year, President Trump does not bluff.
The
The
exact
president's
same.
words are backed up by the mightiest warriors in the world who possess the most sophisticated capabilities this world has ever known. 49 and counting of the most senior Iranian regime leaders,
Shit.
including the supreme leader,
That's not good.
have already been wiped off the face of the earth. Make no mistake, killing these brutal terrorists is good for America and makes the world a much safer place. I want to also extend our prayers and condolences to the families of the 6 U.S. military service members who have been lost
Shit, I have to
in
do that.
Operation Epic Fury. These heroes represent the very best among us. They
I've
laid
definitely
down
lost
their
this one.
lives in defense of our country, and we will never forget their legacy or their sacrifice. As the president said, we grieve for these American patriots and their families as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. President Trump intends to attend the dignified transfer of these American heroes to stand
I'm
in
lagging
grief
so much. Fuck me.
alongside their families. I understand the Department of War is working on scheduling this transfer, and we will provide updates at the
Fucking
appropriate
lag.
time. Finally, the Trump administration is also doing
Is my
everything
internet
in its
alright or
power
what?
to protect Americans
He's taking
in
that one
harm's
now.
way. Since the launch of Operation Epic Fury, more than 17,500 Americans
I'm gonna have to
have
restart my game after
safely
this.
returned home from the Middle East, with over 8,500 American citizens returning home to the United States just
Jesus.
yesterday alone. If you are a U.S. citizen in the Middle East looking to return to the United States, the Secretary of State asks that you please register with the State Department at step.state.gov. The State Department will
There we go.
identify where you are and provide travel options directly to you. The administration is already rapidly chartering flights free of charge and booking commercial options, which we expect to become increasingly available as time goes on and the success of this mission further
You won't
comes
hit
to
the witch.
fruition.
Fucking hell.
I know the President and Secretary of State Rubio have been in touch as well with our allies in the region directly about this problem, making it clear that it is a priority of the United States of America to bring every American home. The Trump administration will not rest
Just defend,
until every
defend,
American
defend, defend.
is home safely and until the terrorist threat from Iran has been completely destroyed. With that, I'll take your questions. Eric, why don't you kick us off today? Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here. As you mentioned, Iran's regime's leadership is
King Caroline is one who's got a way better deck
we
than
have a
me.
sense right now who's actually calling the shots. In Iran, we're also hearing reports that the Supreme Leader's son may be named his successor. Do you have any more information about that? I just have a quick follow-up as well.
Sure. We've seen those reports as well, of course, and this is something that our intelligence agencies are closely
King
monitoring
Carol.
and looking at. The truth is, we'll have to wait and see. The president has said repeatedly that the objectives of Operation Epic Fury are the core military objectives that I laid out for you previously, to destroy Iran's navy, to destroy their ballistic missile capacity, to ensure their proxies in the region can no longer harm Americans, and to also ensure that they can never obtain a nuclear weapon. As for what comes next for Iran, the president
No,
has
he's won, GG.
it's a good thing for the United States to want freedom for the Iranian people, and ultimately we hope that freedom rests
My
in
internet on or what?
Muslim nations coming under fire as well. President Trump's vision for the region has been to bring the Arab and Muslim nations to the table together. Abraham Accords, obviously, with Israel. If this regime topples, could we see a new day in the region and a new Middle East for Americans in the best sense?
Well, the greatest deterrent to true and long-lasting peace in the Middle East has always been the rogue Iranian terrorist regime. And our Arab and Gulf partners in the nation admit that, as well as, of course, our close friend and ally Israel. We have seen all of the Arab partners in the region come together during this time on the phone with President Trump, many of them commending him for this bold and brave action to protect American troops and our bases in the region that are housed in many of these Arab and Gulf states. And I know that many of these regional partners are contributing their air defense capabilities as well. Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and the president continues to be engaged with all of them.
Strap yourselves in, you bastards.
I think it was the first report this morning of this phone call between the president and Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying that Netanyahu had given the U.S. this information about where the Ayatollah would be and then he'd be with his deputies on Saturday. How important was that information in the president making the decision to strike where and when he did?
I think it was important with respect to the timeline, but I think the president
Work hard, play hard.
had a good feeling that the Iranian regime was going to strike the United States assets and our personnel in the region. And the president was
Fucking
faced
hell.
with a choice. Does the United States of America use our military and our capabilities to strike first, to take out this threat that has been threatening our country,
I'm talking to a cat right now.
Or is he going
Boo.
to, as commander-in-chief, sit back and watch as the rogue regime attacks our
Boo.
people in the region? That's obviously an unacceptable decision.
Boo.
The second choice there is unacceptable to the president, which is why he made this decision. As for where the Ayatollah is going to be, that obviously had an impact on the timeline of the operation, but not quite the president's decision in its entirety.
On the way to the public is doing this, we were sitting here last week. I asked you, the president's going to make this a big part of the State of the Union, because he felt like he had to sell the possibility that he'd do strikes like this. We're now 5 days on, hasn't been kind of the traditional speech to the nation part of it. Does the president believe the country supports the actions that he's taken so far in Iran?
I think he does, and I think the president knows the country is smart enough to read past many of the fake news headlines produced by people in this room that this action was unjustifiable. Again, this is a rogue terrorist regime that has been threatening the United States, our allies, and
Blue now.
for
Blue minion.
47 years. And the American people are smart enough to know that, and they've also been smart enough
Give
to
me a
listen to
Dragon
the
Man
president
shot.
himself. Not just over the past year in his second term, but during his first term as president, and also for the past 40 years of his life. This is a president who has been remarkably consistent on this issue, that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And the president tried peace.
I knew it was. Oh, I thought him.
He and his team gave it their best go, and the president ultimately came to the determination that peace was not a pursuable path. The Iranian regime, they want death, they want destruction, they want to kill Americans, and that's unacceptable to this president. It's intolerable to him as commander-in-chief. Jackie.
I was listening to the update from the State Department on the 17,500 Americans that have already come back, including some 8,000 just yesterday. There are still 6,000 that are looking to get out, as I understand it. And just in the context of what you just told Garrett about the president's decision on timeline, he decided to do this strike before receiving the specific intelligence about the meeting on Saturday. Should there have been more done?
I ain't going out to use your love blue. There you go.
To try to get those Americans in the region resources and information to get home before day 3 of the war.
There was many signs put out by the State Department, and I wish that everyone in this room would report on
I'll put blue down.
Secretary of State issued level 4 travel advisories dating back to January for many of these countries in the region. On January 14th, the U.S. mission to Saudi Arabia advised personnel and Americans to exercise increased caution and limit non-essential travel to any military installations. On February 11th, the U.S. Department of State Consular Affairs shared a list of countries with level 4 do not travel advisories. You can't be much more clear than that. Do not travel to these following countries. On February 23rd, the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon ordered non-emergency government personnel and family members to leave Lebanon due to safety risks, and we helped them do that. On March 2nd, the State Department urged U.S. citizens to depart Lebanon immediately. With respect to Iran, on February 27th, the Secretary designated Iran as a state of sponsor of wrongful detention and stated no American should travel to Iran for any reason. And again, on February 27th, the U.S. ambassador to Israel warned Americans to leave Iran, and they provided travel advisory alerts through the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. So the State Department was all hands on deck on advising extreme caution and do not travel alerts to Americans in the region. With respect to the Americans who are still in the region now, again, the State Department is asking that they register at the website so they can identify you, and we are actively and rapidly working to charter flights. There is some commercial flights that are taking off intermittently from these countries, and we plan to get Americans on board as quickly as possible, again, free of charge to them. And we have some additional measures that I think will be announced in the coming days. Again, I can also reiterate from the president's perspective, this is something he's brought up.
Same guy and dickhead.
Our allies and partners in the region that we expect their help in getting Americans home. We will do that, and we will not rest until every single American returns home safely.
And then one follow-up just on how people might be experiencing this at home. With respect to the economy and the cost of oil spiking, is there a need to start those Navy exports in the Strait of Hormuz now to sort of blunt the impact of people? And also, because Spain is a member of the EU, is that
Alright, so dickhead.
the president's plan for a trade embargo?
With respect to Spain, I think they heard the president's message yesterday loud and clear. And it's my understanding over the past several hours, they've agreed to cooperate with the U.S. military.
I just drunk
The U.S. military is coordinating
Ba nói rõ rồi cậu.
The president expects all of our European allies, of course, to cooperate in this long sought-after mission, not just for the United States, but also for Europe, to crush the rogue Iranian regime that, again, not only threatens America, but also threatens our European allies as well. With respect to oil prices and the economy here at home, of course, this is something that Secretary Bessent, Secretary Wright, the National Economic Council of Energy, that is led by Secretary Burgum, has been long working on and well in advance. Yesterday, President Trump announced the U.S. Development Finance Corporation will provide political risk insurance at a very reasonable price for crude carriers and cargo ships operating in and around the Gulf. And as you pointed out, Jackie, the president said if necessary and when appropriate, the U.S. Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. I think it speaks to why this action was so necessary, that ultimately the U.S. energy industry is going to benefit from the president's actions with respect to Iran, because Iran will no longer be controlling the Strait of Hormuz and restricting the free flow of energy, which, as we all know, controls 20% of the world's global oil supply. The president said yesterday that he's time with the escalation plans because this question is so urgent. Given how critical the president has been of the prolonging the escalation plans in Afghanistan as the Trump administration 5 years ago, why wasn't more of a focus
Very nice.
evacuation plans in the Middle East that could have been at least put in place ready to go before the Brexit? Again, I just laid out for you that there have been plans in place and that the State Department has been very clear to the American people that traveling within this region not to travel to these regions. We gave notices to leave immediately the countries where these Americans were within. And unlike the previous administration, we actually have a number. We actually have identified the number of people in the region who have requested help. We are in direct contact and engagement with them. And you have to keep in mind, there's a few thousand people who have requested assistance to come home in comparison to the millions who we understand are in the region. So we will help every single American who wants to come home if they're making that request with the State Department. We called the State Department hotline as recently as last night. We were being told, we can't help you, you have to make your own plans. The line was updated, and I expect every single person in this room to report on that accurately, so that information can be relayed appropriately to your audiences and to American people. I think as journalists, you all have a responsibility to let them know that the line has been updated accordingly with the proper guidance, because I saw many people in this room very quick to do selfie videos with the line yesterday and not so quick to report on the corrected message today. And so that is something the administration will quickly work to address, and we have fixed that problem. However, we're also pointing to people to the website, again, to register so that we know exactly where you are. So when there are commercial flights moving into that area, when there are chartered flights moving into that area, we can get Americans on planes as quickly as possible. How many charter flights have been able to get out of the region so far with Americans on board? I don't have an exact count for you, but I know that we're working on chartering many flights. As soon as we were doing it yesterday, we're doing it again today. And you should not expect us to detail exactly when these flights are taking off for obvious reasons. The Iranians have shown that they are not going to hesitate to target civilians in the region, which is completely intolerable. But for safety and security reasons, we're not going to be broadcasting when flights full of Americans are going to be taking off, obviously. Danny.
At the top floor, you said that the Iranian regime is doing absolutely nothing. Can you explicitly say that there are not regime changes that is the goal of President Trump's operation?
The goals of this operation have been made very clear, Danny, and the president has said them in his speech when we launched this operation, and he's released that video in the middle of the night to all of you and to the world. The stated military objectives of Operation Epic Fury are as follows: eliminate Iran's ballistic missile threat, destroy their naval capability, disrupt missile and drone production infrastructure, sever their pathway, and end their pathway to nuclear weapons. And I can report, as you all saw from the Pentagon today, that thus far this operation has been remarkably successful. Again, we're moving towards complete and total control of Iranian airspace. We have continuous 24/7 operations ongoing. We've had more than 2,000 targets that have been struck, nearly 2,000 munitions have been deployed. The first 24 hours of this campaign were described nearly twice the scale of the 2003 shock and awe campaign. And we've seen that for the enemy, the Iranian States military continues to increase its complete dominance over this rogue regime, they are weakening day by day.
A phrase that you would want to use.
Again, Operation Epic Fury, I just detailed the goals and objectives of this very quickly. But obviously, as the president has said numerous times, do we want to see Iran being led by a rogue terrorist regime? No, of course not. So any day the United States of America is taking out a terrorist is a good day for our country and a good day for our people.
I agree.
In that point that you just make about the United States would mind seeing the government overthrown, certainly President Trump has talked about wanting to see Iranians overthrow the government. Has the president considered at all kind of how he views the U.S. role, if any, in Iran post-conflict?
Considering and discussing with his advisors and his national security team. But again, right now, the focus, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, is on ensuring the quick and effective success of Operation Epic Fury. Sure. Go ahead.
I want to ask you about the U.S. munitions.
I already know you're speaking to me. We're going to get you. We're going to have a question now.
I want to ask about the U.S. munitions stockpile. President Trump posted on Truth Social on Monday that the U.S. still has a good supply of weapons, but that we still, we're not where we need to be. What does he mean by that? And does President Trump then want to ask on Congress to pass a supplemental to increase funding for missile interceptor systems like the ones we use to defend workers in the Middle East from Iran?
I don't have any updates for you on congressional asks from the president. As you know, under this president, we have significantly increased our defense budget, which is a good thing for the United States, for our national security, and for protecting our homeland. With respect to
This game is ruined now. We can't win.
the United States of America has more than enough capability to not only successfully execute Operation Epic Fury, but to go much further. And we have weapons stockpiles in places that many people in this world don't even know about. However, the president in that post was pointing out that, unfortunately, we had a very stupid and incompetent leader in this White House for 4 years who gave away many of our best weapons for nothing, for free, to another country very far away by the name of Ukraine. So the president was pointing out how that was an unwise decision, but nevertheless, don't doubt the strength and the might of the American military. And I will also add, President Trump has rightfully been calling on defense contractors in this country to rapidly and aggressively produce American-made weapons because they are the best in the world. And the president always likes to get things done as quickly as possible. And so he's been quite vocal in his efforts to try to speed up our defense industry to protect our homeland. Go ahead.
Can you tell us about the president's current thinking about ground troops and whether they could be used, if they were to be sent into Iran, what would they be used for? What's the plan?
Well, they're not part of the plan for this operation at this time, but I certainly will never take away military options on behalf of the President of the United States or Commander-in-Chief, and he wisely does not do the same for himself. I know there's many leaders in the past who like to take options off of the table without having a full understanding of how things could develop. So again, it's not part of the current plan, but I'm not going to remove an option for the President that is on the table. Sean.
Did the United States shrink its girls' elementary school and kill 175 people?
Not that we know of, Sean, and the Department of War is investigating this matter, and I will just tell you very strongly, the United States of America does not target civilians, unlike the rogue Iranian regime that targets civilians, that kills children, that has killed thousands of their own people in the past several weeks, and uses propaganda quite effectively. And unfortunately, many people in this room have fallen for that propaganda. So I would caution you from pointing the finger at the United States of America when it comes to targeting civilians, because that's not something that these armed forces do. Reagan.
The news cycle, is the SAVE Act still a priority for the administration? Just provide an update on the administration's talks with Congress to get the SAVE Act through.
SAVE Act is absolutely still a priority for this president and the administration. The focus, of course, of much of the president's time right now is on ensuring the success of Operation Epic Fury, but the president can walk and chew gum at the same time, and he's very much continuing to focus on the issues that matter here at home for the American people, including the passage of the SAVE Act, including on bringing down the cost of living, which is why you'll see the president in about an hour roundtable, where he will be sitting with big tech companies and AI companies who are building in communities across the country and have pledged to pick up the cost of the electricity electricity tab in these small towns and communities across the country, which is a great thing for American consumers. So you'll be hearing